and welcome to the Jamie and Steven Show. Let's talk movies, music and magic with your hosts, Steven and Jamie. Hi Jamie. Hello. Oh, that's right. We were taking a little break between the classics. Well, in that case, I've got an idea. Hello, and welcome to the Steven Show. Let's talk Disney. Who needs a complicated title when you can just have that simple? See? In this episode, I wanted to put a spotlight on a member of the Disney team who deserves so much more recognition. In the first block of our podcasts, we have mentioned this Disney legend many times. He's done 2 stints at the company, producing some of the most memorable Disney elements within the Disney animated classics, and so much more. He may be an actual Disney legend, but today he is going to receive the honour of being the first winner of the Jamie and Steven Show Disney Hero Award. It is, of course, Joe Grant. Joe Grant was born in New York in 1908. He moved to California with his family when he was very young, around 1910, so this would have made him roughly 2 years old. He began his career as a character designer in 1932 at the age of 24. Grant would draw characters of famous celebrities of the time, and this would have been in the similar vein to shows such as Spitting Image, The Windsors and 2D TV. It was this talent that alerted Walt Disney's attention. At the time, Disney was making a short for the 5th Academy Awards. This was called the Parade of the Award Nominees, and would have various caricatures of celebrities of the time, which seems a perfect match for Grant. Although it is rarely recognised as such, this was actually the first Mickey Mouse cartoon made in colour. Roy Disney hoped that it would encourage more money into the studios so they could start making all of their shorts in colour, so they could stay ahead or at least stay within the game. He would have had a pretty good audience at the Academy Awards, as at the time it was known as the prestigious award. Interestingly, within this short, Mickey's shorts were green. It's a coincidence that the colour of his clothes, or the sequence that they changed, was the same as Santa Claus, going from green to red. What is more, Pluto was grey in colour, which really made it an odd choice to show off the colour possibilities of a Disney short. If people wanted to see a grey dog in a cartoon, then, well, practically any dog in a cartoon at the time would have been grey. The success of this short paved the way for classics such as the band concert, On Ice and others, all now in glorious colour. Elsewhere, Grant was also designed the Evil Queen in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, we've touched on this in a previous podcast, so I won't go too much into that one. However, I will say that the Evil Queen is a villain that still holds an impact nearly 85 years later. She is seen in parks, merchandise, and has been seen in some shorts. It was during this era that Walt was looking for story ideas for future feature-length animated films. When Walt personally asked Joe Grant, Grant responded with The Little Mermaid. Although the story, specifically the end, was deemed either too difficult or inappropriate at the time. It was, however, later adapted by the Walt Disney Animation Studios and is considered one of the best animated films of all time. Considered one of the best soundtracks of all time, and is considered one of the films that actually saved the Disney Animation Studios. Whilst the studios was working on Pinocchio, Joe was a story artist. He formed a character model department which produced small statues of each character, which were to be used by artists as a reference point. This has never been done before, but is a technique that is still used, and it's just showing of his talent and his ideas that this technique is used decades later. On the third animated classic, which was Fantasia, Walt asked a selection of his team to work alongside Stokowski. Grant and his co-story director, Dick Humer, were part of this group. At the time, Walt didn't want to know any of the selections or the ideas that could go into the film. He didn't want this to bias him or any of the other creative team of what to do. He only wanted to know the music or the music choices once they had been chosen. It's quite important that we recognise at this point that Walt entrusted this not only to Dick Humer but also Joe Grant. It was also with Dick Humer that Grant co-developed a short story into an animated short, then evolving that into a feature-length film. The film in question, Dumbo. Grant would work on many more films and shorts at the time, one of which was a story about his dog's reaction to a new baby in the house. It was titled simply Lady. The idea was shelved alongside others for over a decade, which was common. It was during the war era, so we saw a lot of films being shelved at this time, such as The Adventures of Mr. Toad, there was Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan. This film, or this idea, was shelved, as I say, for over a decade. However, it became merged with another story, which ultimately would be Lady and the Tramp. Unfortunately, Grant would not be at the Disney Studios at the time of this film's release. He left the company in 1949, and it is unknown what he thought about the final film. A definite reason why he left the company has never been confirmed. Grant himself stated that he wanted to escape the communal world of animated filmmaking. Others, meanwhile, have gone on record to say that Joe Grant and Walt Disney were known to argue. Walt was very demanding, and this was the source for some conflict. Interestingly, as we've been going through the animated classics, we have seen this kind of side of Walt appear over and over again with other animators and other workers within the company. So whether or not this was just a unique situation with Grant, or whether it was just part and by of, well, working at the company at the time, we do not know. Grant has also stated that he didn't like the no royalties aspect of the company, a complaint that has come to great attention when Peggy Lee sued the company over VHS sales. It's interesting to note that the film that Peggy Lee was, well, most involved in, and when the VHS sales went through the roof, was for the film Lady and the Tramp. After leaving the studios, Joe Grant worked with his wife and father-in-law, designing tiles and plates. This alternative career proved successful, and by the 1970s, he had retired. But his Disney story doesn't stop there. During the 1980s, long after the last of the original 9 old men left the studios, Joe Grant would find himself once again a member of the Disney family. Roy O. Disney, now in charge of the animation department, followed in his uncle's footsteps by asking trusted team members to seek out story ideas. This was before the now famous gong process, where films such as Pocahontas came from. Roy O. Disney asked Charlie Fink to visit Jack Kinney, one of the original 9 old men, who had kept loads of ideas and drawings from his time at the Disney Studios. Unfortunately, Kinney was seriously ill at the time and struggled to remember most of it. It was either the suggestion of Jack or his wife that Fink should meet up with an old colleague who could go on and go into better detail. This colleague? Why, it was Joe Grant. The meeting between Fink and Grant was so successful that Disney made him an offer to return. After much deliberation and encouragement from his wife, he agreed. Now in his 80s, Grant became a key contributor to what is now called the Renaissance era of Disney animation. In his first few years, he provided ideas and movement suggestions for Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. For Aladdin, he worked on Abu, as well as the expressive gestures for the Magic Carpet. In 1992, he received the honour of being given a Disney Legend Award. For The Lion King, he then worked on the character of Rafiki. In fact, throughout the 90s, he contributed to visual and character development for the following films: Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, and Tarzan. A key role he continued into the 2000s with Treasure Planet and Home on the Range, as well as the Pixar classic Monsters, Inc. Aside from this, he was also a story consultant on Mulan and Lilo and Stitch, as well as being a key animator on Brother Bear. Some of his last work for Disney was on Chicken Little. Rustle of the page there. Amazingly, at 96, Grant was working on the concept and the story art for the short Lorenzo. In 2005, it was whilst working at his drawing desk for this project that he suffered a heart attack and sadly passed away. He was 9 days short of his 97th birthday. Following his death, projects such as Lorenzo and Chicken Little have since been released, the latter being dedicated to him. For his work at Pixar, the 2009 film Up is also dedicated to Joe Grant. So here we are, nearly 20 years after his passing, and we're still admiring this man and the work he did. We have all heard the names such as John Lasseter, Michael Eisner, Ollie Johnson or Mark Davis, but considering Joe Grant is responsible or partly responsible for so many key components within the lifetime of Disney animation, it is due time he is recognised as the Disney hero he is. Joe Grant, thank you for the work you did. It has contributed to the joy of generations gone by and will continue long after even I am here. Thank you. This has been a special Jamie and Stephen show. Let's talk movies, music and magic. Honouring Joe Grant. For more Disney facts, follow us on Threads and Instagram. You can also like and subscribe. But until the next time, when I'll be joined by Jamie, from me, Stephen, it's goodbye.